kind of a classic 1969 British crime caper movie. It's one of those things that always comes around at Christmas because it's one of the films that makes you think, hey, wow, it's really, really great to be British. You know, it's got Michael Caine, it's got loads of minis, and the story is about a bunch of British people going to Europe and generally trouncing everybody else. Although it has to be said that watching it now, there's a sort of slight... Because one of the centerpieces of the plot is that the gang, there's a criminal gang, go and do a job in Turin, and they're travelling around Turin, and the way that they decide not to get noticed is that they all dress as rowdy football supporters in a coach. And of course, bearing in mind that Turin is the home of Juventus, that now may seem like not the most sensible thing in the world to do.
I'll tell you what, I've got the video here, and it's hilarious actually reading this sort of real 60s kind of spiel that they put on it, because the great selling point under the poster is, it's daylight robbery. How do they get away with it? You know, on the back it says, Michael Caine and Noel Coward star in this fast, entertaining comedy caper.
you know that in America, actually, it was much worse, because the American... we'll talk about the movie in a minute, but if you've seen the movie, it's a U certificate film. And in America, the poster that they put out consisted of a naked woman sitting on the lap of a gangster, which kind of implied, you know, like all those other Michael Caine movies, you know, like Get Carter, or, you know, that it was going to be some sort of hardcore gangster movie. And of course, it just turned out to be a load of minis trolling around in Turin. So it flopped over there. It did very, very well in Europe and England, but did very, very badly in America. In case you haven't seen it, you know, the plot is that this low-rent English crook comes out of prison, which is Charlie Croker, who's played by Caine, and he inherits this perfect heist, which is the deal is to get $4 million worth of Italian bullion. And the way they're going to do it is that a bunch of British crooks are going to go to Turin, and they're going to foul up the traffic system, because Turin's got this incredible computerised traffic system. There will be a massive gridlock. They will get all the bullion out of the van, and they will then put it into 3 minis, a red mini, a white mini, and a blue mini. And then, because minis are so fantastic, and because the Italian police drive Fiats, which are so crap, they will be able to escape over the Turin rooftops and through weirs and going down, you know, sewers, and all those fantastic places that minis can't go, that obviously Italian cars can't go. And that's really the entire plot. The film was put together by Michael Caine, who got it together with the scriptwriter, this guy Troy Kennedy Martin, who ended up doing things like the Sweeney, and I think he was the guy who invented Z cars. Right. And it was basically designed in order to open out Michael Caine's appeal and to make him into a family icon. And it's a real sort of, it's a stylish thing. You look back on it now, and things that you notice, for example, straight away, Michael Caine's wardrobe is really fantastic. He wears all these light suits, and he always wears dark, you know, like black leather gloves, which looks very kind of sexy and very Michael Caine. And he's got this girlfriend who he refers to all the way through as Bird, which obviously you can't do now because it's 69. And you know, she wears
Bird or bloke.
Bird or bloke, absolutely, yes. Michael Caine's girlfriend or bloke, and she wears this little kind of brown leather mini skirt and this nice eye-catching, you know, brown leather jacket. And there are these great sing-along songs, and you know, Matt Monro sings the opening theme tune, which is called Days Like These, and then at the end they all sing this great big rousing football chant, We Are the Self-Preservation Society, which I think is officially called Get a Blooming Movement. So there's all these kind of classic 60s style things about it, and and it really makes you feel like there was a point in 1969 when maybe being British and being Michael Caine was the coolest thing in the world. The other thing is that it's an... I mean, I watched it again the other night, and I'd forgotten just how many British stars are in it. It's like an absolute rogue...
Benny Hill, isn't it?
Benny Hill, who plays this, actually I think quite a good role. He's the guy, he's the scientist who has to figure out how to foul up the Turin. I mean, it was true that Turin did have this incredibly complex computerised traffic system, and Benny Hill plays the scientist who has a fatal flaw. His fatal flaw is that he's terminally attracted to women with fat arses, which of course, you know, somehow Benny Hill's character may have, you know, possibly suggested that.
I mean, it's a bit sort of underused in terms of movie roles, Benny Hill, because he was very good in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, one wonders how much of a great actor he would ever have been. I mean, he did tend to sort of play the bumbling, you know, sort of slightly kind of guy like that. In the same way as, like in this movie, you know, Irene Handler is his sister, and she does that same role that Irene Handler always does. And then Simon D is this Camp Taylor, and then there's John Le Mesurier as the prison governor. And they're all basically doing the roles that they were kind of famous for. But the most famous other role in it is Noel Coward.
Yeah.
And Noel Coward, it turns out, Noel Coward used to support an orphanage, used to give financial support to this orphanage, and the director of the movie, this guy Peter Collinson, had grown up in this orphanage that Noel Coward had supported, which was one of the reasons that Noel Coward ended up doing it. And the role that he plays is he's the central gang boss. He's called Mr. Bridger, and he's inside prison, and he actually runs the crime from inside prison. So Michael Caine is on the outside, and in order to go to the boss and get all the plans, Michael Caine has to keep regularly breaking back into prison to go and clear it with his boss. And the boss is very patriotic, and he collects pictures of the Queen, and he's he ruled Britannia and all that sort of thing. So that's the setup of the movie. It is basically nice, Cockney, patriotic Brits in red, white, and blue minis go to Italy and jump all over their European counterparts because basically they're cooler than they are. Anyway, there's this. We're going to play you this clip. The clip has in it, or it ends with, I think, one of the most famous cult movie lines of all time. I mean, the cult qualities of the movie, quite apart from its design, it has has two really, really quotable lines. The one of them is the last line of the movie, which we'll come to later on, which is, you know, Michael Caine saying, "Hang on a minute, lads, I've got a great idea."
Yeah.
But this, however, is, I think, Michael Caine's most famous line ever, with the possible exception of "Take off your bra" in Get Carter. And so this is 3 bits of the movie put together. But it starts off with Noel Coward in prison complaining that Michael Caine is just using far too many resources to get this gig together. Okay.
Does he really need all this equipment?
He says he does.
No. You're meant to use your brakes, Chris.
Terribly sorry, Charles.
How many cars we got left, Bill?
Couple, Charlie.
Send the next one up. Let's hope he gets it right.
What do you mean?
They're written off.
A series of accidents, Mr. Bridger. I promise there'll be no more.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
So Mark Kermode, for the uninitiated, what's happening there exactly?
Okay, what's happened is that they've held up. At first, what they're trying to do is they're practicing the stunt drivers. The deal is that the three guys who are the drivers are these guys that he refers to as chinless wonders, and they are just smashing up the minis as they're trying to figure out how they're going to do the getaway.
Yeah.
Then at the end of it, they're practicing that they've got the gold bullion van, and the guy's meant to blow the back of the doors off. And of course, what happens is the entire van explodes, and Michael Caine, turns to and says, "You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off."
Right, okay, Mark Kermode on one of the truly great British movies, The Italian Job. We'll return after a couple of tunes.
Permission for songs, because I thought the deal was that as long as you paid the royalties on it, they couldn't stop you. I mean, for example, did the people that wrote My Way give permission for Sid Vicious to do that? And I certainly don't remember the Pointer Sisters ever giving me permission in the trashy little band I was in to do a version of Slow Hand.
No, but I mean, you've got to be at a certain standard in showbiz, Mark, before anybody notices what songs you're doing. But no, I mean, as I understand it, and if we are going to make a technical issue, I thought that if you're going to make a commercial release of it, that you have to submit an application to the publishers, I thought.
I don't think so. I think that if you are going to change it in any way, like parody it, or sort of change the arrangements, then you have to. But I don't think otherwise.
Well, thank goodness that we had a well-known musicologist on hand.
From the legal department. Hey, Matt!
Can we open a correspondence on this, please?
That sounds feasible then. So because Urban, I think that was one of his problems with it, with Urban Cookie Collective, that there was it was a hugely mashed up version. Yeah, I don't think that's the technical drum and bass term.
No,
mashed up.
No, it's a flavour anyway. Some flavour.
They were mixing the flavours up in an area, right? And he didn't like the area.
He didn't like the flavour.
Right. Okay. So there, we got that sorted out nicely. Now, the Italian Job. Before we go back to the film itself, Matt, what about an assessment of Michael Caine as movie actor? Because I once saw a masterclass he was giving. Because and I think he seems like pretty much a top bloke, Michael Caine. And he was saying that he was at a huge disadvantage through being blonde. He said, and so he gave the main tip he had to give to people. He said, if you're in the movies, all people really watch is your eyes. Apart from acting sequences, on stage it's all body language, but in the movies it's eyes. And so if you've got blonde eyelashes, the first thing you must do, or else you'll never make any impact, is whack mascara on them, or else you have no impact whatsoever.
That's just rubbish, that philosophy, anyway, because I watched Barbed Wire last night. I didn't notice her eyes once.
What was Barbed Wire?
Got Pamela Anderson in the thing.
Did you know?
Oh, they're back together, aren't they?
Oh, there you are. I didn't know they were apart.
If you saw it on video, incidentally, Barbed Wire was longer on video, but it had more of Pamela Anderson's assets than it did in the cinema. Because in the cinema they wanted a 15 certificate. You frowned upon them.
I mean, but is it? I mean, he's one of those people where people, everybody watches him and said he's just playing himself again.
Well, the thing about him is, I mean, he has done an extraordinarily large amount of movies, and in a lot of those, the movies that he clearly didn't care about, he does just do the thing about turning up and being Michael Caine. That masterclass is actually brilliant because he does this whole sort of long thing about, when you're in the theatre, it's all body movements, and when you're in the cinema, everything's much closer up. And I think, maybe there is something right about that. But I have to say that when you get to movies like Jaws 4: The Revenge, this time it's personal. It doesn't matter what you're going to do with your eyelashes. Nobody's looking at them anyway. They're looking at the large shark.
Jaws 4. This time it's complete bollocks.
That is following. Yeah, absolutely. There was a really, really cruel spitting image sketch once with Michael Caine. Did you ever see this with him accepting everything that came through the mail? And he was ringing his agent up. And he's going, "It's Michael Caine. I've just had the new script through the post. I think it's absolutely wonderful." And his agent was saying, "I didn't send you anything." He said, "Yes, you did. Telephone directory. It's absolutely wonderful. I want to do it." And he was just accepting anything. And I think that was the thing that maybe gave him that reputation. But I think in the 1960s he was a great actor. And I think that, actually in the 1980s he was a great actor. I like him in Educating Rita and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not knocking him. I'm just looking for a sort of a filmic assessment from yourself.
Yes, well, I think that when he tries, he's very good. I think that, however, he has treated a lot of the movies that he's done with the kind of contempt that they probably deserve.
Right, fair enough. He's still taken the Ackers.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Right,
and he's done the telephone directory.
Okay, so back to the Italian job.
The thing that people remember are the car chases and the Mini stuff. One of the kind of great ironies of this is that the movie's kind of set up, Minis are good, red, white and blue, Fiats are bad, they're the Italians. Of course, one of the ironies of it was that Fiat actually were very cooperative with the movie, and they allowed them to film on top of the Fiat factory and to use the Fiat racetrack. Mini, however, the company that owned Mini were very bad, but they said, "No, we don't want you, we're not interested in you." I think they ended up smashing up something like 16 Minis, and Mini only gave them, one Mini that they could have and do what they wanted with. And Michael Caine was very annoyed about this and said, how terrible that the English can't get their head around this. But one of the greatest ironies of it is there is a very famous scene in which the Minis zoom over this wet, watery weirs, and this water sprays everywhere. And actually, all the
as opposed to dry, watery weirs.
Well, yes, absolutely. Thank you. And one of the things about all the car chase sequences, they're all very choreographed, and this bit is almost like a bit of synchronized swimming. It's like wet ballet. And the thing is, if you've ever had a Mini, I don't know whether you've ever driven a Mini, but Minis have got...
I've always had big flash cars, being rich.
Well, I'm rich and flash, but I've got, well, my wife has got a 1964 Mini with original exterior hinges.
Yeah, I bought my wife a couple of Minis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if you've ever driven a Mini, the one thing you'd know about them, which is very famous, is that, brilliant idea, transverse engine, which is, fits into a small space. Big design flaw, however, is that the distributor in a Mini is right at the very front of the engine, which means first drop of water, the car stops running. It's the one problem with Minis. They will do anything, they'll do 360-degree turns, and they'll run for 60 miles on 1 gallon of petrol, but if it's raining, they stop. And what should actually happen in that scene, in the Italian job, is they've got, they're just about to be out of the outskirts of Turin, and they get to the weirs, and then all the Minis stall, and all the Fiat zoom round and put them all in prison. So that is...
Roll end credits. Brilliant.
Absolutely, it is a major problem. The other thing that the movie is famous for is it has one of the most famous ending sequences of all time, which is that they've got away with the bullion and they're escaping over the Alps. And like I said, they're disguised as English soccer hooligans, and they're singing this Self-Preservation Society song. And clearly, in a reference to the Wages of Fear, what happens is they're also thrilled that the coach driver sort of skids and the coach ends up hanging one end off a cliff, one end on the road. Yeah. Which, if you've been watching the television in the last 5 years, that Coke advert, or is it a Pepsi advert? I can't remember which is which.
That's right, yeah.
The guy says, "Oh, I just lost it there and I flipped out a little bit," and he can't decide whether to let go of the truck because it's got Coca-Cola in it. Well, that's inspired by the end of the Italian job. And what happens is, at the end of it, the gold is in the end of the coach, which is hanging over the cliff. The guys are all in the other end of the coach, and it's a very sort of neck and neck. Is it going to fall off? And as the camera pulls away up into the Alps, you hear Michael Caine saying, "Hang on a minute, lads, I've got a great idea." Because the point is, there was originally meant to be a sequel in which he did have a great idea. And the great idea he had was leave the engine running. Because if you leave the engine running, the back end of the coach, which is where the petrol tank is, will get lighter. The coach will, the back end of the coach will then come up, and then all the English guys get out. Of course, then what happens is that the coach falls off the cliff, and then it's rescued by one of the Italians, gets hold of it, and then escapes over the border into the south of France. And Michael Caine came up with this brilliant idea that, having had British industry symbolised in the first film by these 3 Minis, in the second film it would be symbolised by chasing this Italian guy across the sort of marshlands of the French border on 2-man hovercrafts, because he said that was another great British invention, but sadly never took off in quite the same way that the Mini did.
Right, I never knew that. I never knew that was the great idea. In fact, just to go back to the advert brief, I can't remember whether it was Pepsi or Coke. Was it Pepsi? Because what he did was that the upshot of the advert was that
he lets it go.
He lets it go because it's not actually brand Pepsi.
It's not either Pepsi or Coke.
I tell you, I'm terribly impressed by your automotive knowledge, Mark. I mean, you should be on Top Gear with that bloke with the fuzzy hair. Was it Eddie Lard? Is it? Does that? Yeah. You should have got a job there. Marvellous. Right. So we're giving away copies of this.
No, we're giving away 3 Minis.
Okay, perfect.
Listen, before you go any further, can I get the drum doctor in? What's going on? That's not very good, that, is it?
I'll sort that for you during the next record. Don't worry. I mean, that's your act. You want me to mend it for you.